For me, the ignition point was certainly health struggles that I had myself. I was mountaineering in South America to prepare for a mountain expedition in the Himalayas. At 4 a.m. in the morning, I fainted while hanging on that rope. I think that's basically when it started to dawn on me that something had to change in my life. It was one of the worst periods of my life, but it also was the beginning of something that gives me so much joy. I have now created something out of it, which is Faenix. So that sometimes the darkest hour can be the beginning of something wonderful.
How many tries did it take to finally have the final product?
I think I'm at number 139. Yeah. Consumer product it takes twice as long and it costs twice as much.
Where do you want Faenix Elixir to be in 5 years?
I wanna make sure that in 5 years, consumers in Europe are happy to have Faenix in their daily routine.
Hello and welcome to the Naked Thoughts podcast. Today I'm sitting with Veronika, founder of Faenix Elixir. You have a law degree. You worked at Red Bull. You studied at MIT and Cambridge. Most people with that background don't start drinks company. What was the actual moment where you thought, okay, I'm doing this?
The story of Faenix Elixir has been a long time coming if you look back, but I think that's happening a lot of times in your life where looking in hindsight, it all looks like a red thread. For me, the ignition point was certainly health struggles that I had myself while managing a huge team of high performers back then in Brussels. It had been one of my dreams to achieve that at a rather young age and to have a lot of responsibility, juggling different languages and just working for something that I had been rooting for so long. But my body showed me the limits. And I had been, as you like, I don't know, some like to call it, had been hustling, both professionally, but also training for a marathon, being up at 4 a.m. in the morning and trying to make everything meet. And I was mountaineering in South America to prepare for a mountain expedition in the Himalayas in 2023. And I was hanging on a rope on a glacier in Ecuador. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, I fainted while hanging on that rope, which is, well, not really ideal timing for that to experience. And back then I was still in denial, but I think that's basically when it started to dawn on me that something had to change in my life. Mm-hmm. And fast forward to now, looking back, it was one of the worst periods of my life because I had to basically admit that I needed to change a lot of things in my life. But it also was the beginning of something that gives me so much joy and, that I have now created something out of it, which is Faenix. So that's for me one of the key things that I also want to share with your listeners or overall with my product. Yeah. That sometimes the darkest hour can be the beginning of something wonderful. And moving on to the Himalayas, in 2023, I still went on that expedition and joined and traveled to Pakistan. Again, something looking back, I think you can tell that I was really kind of stubborn in a way, and I really wanted to experience that. I took it a little bit slower than expected, and I think that also gave me the headspace to experience and saw what I did, which was that one of the blue zones in one of the areas globally where there's a higher percentage of centenarians is also in the Himalayas. Mm-hmm. And I was intrigued because for them, apricot kernels have been one of the symbols for longevity for hundreds of years. And I was both intrigued by the nutritional facts of apricot kernels with proteins and omega fats, but similarly by the symbolism of something that creates life and is so rich, hidden underneath layers and in addition to that, I mean, it's a gorgeous landscape with a valley of green trees emerging between the landslides of Nanga Parbat and K2. So it was an incredible experience. Yeah. And that was certainly the ignition point, but it took a little bit longer for me to actually kind of admit to myself that I wanted to build something based on that.
Okay. That would have been my next question. So when you were there, you realized, okay, I don't want to go back again to Brussels and do my job. And how was that? Or when did you really take the decision to change your life in the end?
Yeah. Maybe you can relate. Sometimes your environment shows you what deep down you already know. It's when something has outlived its purpose. And for me, the year of 2023 was really unraveling, both in terms of my health, but also the questions, do I want to stay in Brussels or not? And in 2024, I decided also to take some time for traveling and had job offers in different European countries. So also very interesting and, frankly speaking, lucrative ones. But I just couldn't get myself to say yes to it. And I think that is something that looking back now, I'm proud of, even though it might sound very, well, to some stupid. But it still feels very true to myself that I said, this is not really exciting me as much as it should if I dedicate my lifetime to it. And then in 2024, also after traveling in Asia, on a random run in London, I decided that this is what I wanted to do, and that I just had been seeing apricots and kernels throughout all these months. If I look back now into my camera roll, they keep on reappearing. So I think it was a little bit like also connecting the dots and then admitting that this is really what I wanted to give a try.
Yeah, that's a super brief story. I think that the environment plays a huge role in wherever you are. And you said your environment gave you already that kind of information, or that maybe being in Brussels is not the right thing. What I want to ask now is or do you feel that you could have realized earlier if you had listened to yourself?
For sure. Yes, definitely. But I think sometimes maybe it's denial, or maybe it was just wanting to pursue other goals.
That's the question. I think oftentimes we know that it's not the right thing, but we still continue, and until, I don't know, we reach a certain point, maybe where like the cost of staying is higher than like changing the situation. But yeah, that's I was curious to know your opinion, because it's like, I think it's sometimes super difficult to leave the situation. And yeah.
I think the sunk cost fallacy is certainly something that has also been kind of has been reappearing in my life for a couple of times, both in personal relationships, professional endeavors. It's because I think genuinely I am someone who loves kind of fixing things. And that's why I also had a hard time sometimes saying, I need to let go now because it's time for something new. I think the best things sometimes come out of, disruptive times.
Back then when you decided, I will turn down all these offers because it doesn't feel right to me, what did people say? What did they advise you? Because I think in those kind of decisions, you oftentimes feel kind of lonely, because obviously it's the logical thing to like accept a good paying job than like starting something from zero. How was that experience for you?
In some respects, it was certainly lonely. I agree with you. But I think sometimes you need that moment by yourself to actually figure out. For me, it was like that. I needed that moment with myself to figure out what I genuinely wanted. I loved my previous jobs, but this right now in Faenix feels very much like the thing that I'm doing for myself, and where I feel so much passion and energy that I create myself. Because I think that's also something that I think a lot of other founders experience, or business owners. Very often it's just you pursuing something. And if you're not convinced, you will immediately feel it. You see it in the results. And I think also your customers know if you're really into it, into your own business and your idea.
Yeah, because you call yourself also like the mom of Faenix Elixir, right? So, but do you think it's also like difficult to link your like identity to your product or to your brand that much?
I am just convinced that any business, and especially startups, if you create really something genuine and something new that hasn't been here in the world, it needs so much TLC, so much tender love and care, because it's an organism that starts to breathe, to live in the world. And that's why for me, it feels very much like taking care of an organism, a being, not a human being, obviously. And right now it's the product and, the people that are working with me to bring this to market and to life. But eventually that's also one of my key drivers. I really want to create a team that I love working with. And I would love, that's also one of the intentions, to create a product that then can, of course, make other people happy and be a part of their everyday routine and make their everyday a little bit brighter and more special. But of course, also building a company that will finance the team that is working with me, and making sure that they have a good life.
You mentioned already like the apricot kernels, like then the Himalayan wisdom, the vitamin D. I think we all struggle with that, especially like in the northern regions of Europe and in the world. Could you walk me through a bit through the list of ingredients, and also who did you talk to? How did you like realize, okay, this should be like a drink that should have these ingredients? How did you also like test the different versions? How did the process look like?
Absolutely. For me, one of the learnings also after the health struggles I had was that I was living a very healthy life in terms of nutrition. I was already using supplements. I felt like I was doing everything right. And despite all of that, I had severe deficiencies. So my doctor back then in Brussels called me after she had seen my blood work, and she said, I can't believe that the person in front of me, that I took your blood, I can't believe that that person is linked to the blood results I have in front of me. You have blood results like someone who has just been stabbed. So that certainly was for me also a moment of reckoning, like, what's wrong with me? And on the other side, why am I taking all these supplements if they don't actually help? And that increased my desire to create something that actually has better bioavailability and combines the things that your body just needs to use the nutrients. And then, of course, give you the things that make your life better and keep you healthy. And one of the deficiencies was vitamin D. And you can imagine vitamin D needs like other actors in its life, a little bit like ourselves. Any human being needs other humans in their life. And I always like to compare it. If you think about vitamin D, you need vitamin D, vitamin K, magnesium, and zinc. All of that combined creates a lovely ecosystem that your body can use. Magnesium is the soil, it's the foundation. Vitamin D is the sun and the sun rays. The tree in the middle is yourself, basically. Yeah. And then you have vitamin K, which is like the rain and basically conducting the vitamin D to the right channels. And I would say the bark of the tree is like zinc. It's basically your activating the receptors in your body. And what I had used before were products that very often just had vitamin D, but not combined either with fat or also not combining it with vitamin K. And that's why I really wanted to create something that combines all of that and eventually also gives you more time to enjoy your life. Okay. Because for me, I have this very lengthy morning routine that I sometimes enjoy. Sometimes I feel like I would rather already head out or have more time to work out, for example. And that's why I really wanted to create something that is easy to integrate in your daily life.
Okay. So if I get that right, it means that vitamin D needs like vitamin K, magnesium, and zinc in order to be able to be absorbed properly.
Yes. So all of them are basically like a circle. They need each other. For example, you need vitamin D, for example, tells your gut how to use the calcium that you need for your bones. Vitamin K then tells the vitamin K then tells the calcium where to go, so to go to the bones and not to the arteries, which of course we don't want. And magnesium and zinc are super important for your sleep quality, but also for your immune system. And those are receptors or kind of like triggers and enabling the others to actually fire in the right way.
How did you find that out, or how did you do some research, and did you talk to like specialists?
For sure. I mean, I've always considered myself a little bit of a polymath. I'm super curious. I just always wanted to find out things. And of course, also with my background in the food industry already at Red Bull, of course, I have a certain knack for these topics. Also working out and training for marathons, it's key to know what you need. But I also, for developing the recipe, I included, for example, a lab in Switzerland to make sure that we actually have the perfect formulation, and also make sure that the amounts and the qualities of the ingredients create a high quality product.
Yeah. How many tries did it take to finally have the final product?
I think I'm at number 139. Yeah.
You mentioned Red Bull. You worked there for a few years, and of course, Red Bull, world-class, massive scale. From your experience, how did that knowledge help you with building your own drink? And did it also somehow work against you?
In my 20s, I really wanted to work from the best of the best. It was a little bit of a learning curve that I wanted to conquer, and I wanted to make sure that I get very diverse backgrounds and different experiences. And Red Bull, of course, also being an Austrian company and brand, was for me one of these wonderful opportunities. But for me, also with my, the other experiences, the years that I had spent in different jobs afterwards, I realized that I was looking for something else. I think it was also the process of kind of my own journey and turning into someone else and deciding that the previous chapter has to end. But there are so many things that you can learn from others, not only from Red Bull, but from other great consumer product companies. So, of course, that's super helpful. And what I admire is also, of course, how they build a culture and, of course, excite their fans, especially, of course, in athletics. And I think that's incredible what they've achieved.
Yeah. I think a lot of people out there start the entrepreneurial journey offering some kind of services, but I think it's even more difficult than to have really a physical product. What I want to ask now is, do you feel that it was more challenging because of that?
You mean instead of building something in the AI space? It's my path. I think there are certain things that a lot of people underestimate, especially in regards to supply chain, but also just how much detail goes into creating a beverage. Something that I kind of something that I've recognized is that a lot of people now tell me, yeah, I've had an idea for a beverage as well. Maybe I'm going to do it. And by now I'm like, I wish you the best of luck, but it really takes a lot. It's not just mixing water with some other ingredients. Especially if you want to make sure that the quality is right. And for Faenix Elixir, it's, for example, so important that the packaging is right, and is protecting the vitamin D in there and making sure that the best quality reaches the consumer and our customers. But the supply chain, of course, looking at the Strait of Hormuz and Iran right now, of course, that has implications, not only for every single ingredient, but also for packaging, for logistics, for then basically guiding the product through the entire customer experience and making sure that it reaches the one who ordered it. That certainly was also something that I'm growing and learning.
And I guess logically, it's oftentimes also much more capital incentive. How was that in your case? Did you have money saved so that you could really invest, or how quickly, business angels or VC investors jumped on that project?
I'm a bootstrap business, so it's my own capital that I invested. I wanted to develop a product, bring it to market, and then, of course, also see if that works. And then I think also a little bit of one factor is certainly also that I worked a lot in previous years. So, of course, I had this money saved, and I wanted to make sure that I have the room to breathe and to decide what I really wanted to do.
So I guess you had for yourself a certain runway.
Yes, absolutely.
Would you recommend to, is there a specific amount? I think it depends also of course on your own and on the person itself, but to have a certain amount saved up in order to...
I think that's hard to pin down. One thing that I would give as a recommendation for anyone considering doing a consumer product is it takes twice as long and it costs twice as much. Even though I have industry knowledge and I've been in the business before, but that you better have a lovely runway. There are lots of hidden costs that I think you wouldn't probably expect.
Yeah,
and I think that's also an important thing to know from a consumer perspective. Because what I see a lot of times is people are just underestimating of how much regulations you also need to comply with, what it costs to finally be able to use unit economics of scale. So, of course, I don't want to give the details, but of course, it takes a long time to reach an interesting economic point.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, at some point, I think you developed or you discovered like the formula after 193 tries. So after that, how did you continue, and how did you start with the massive production, and where is it produced? Is it like here in Europe or?
Yes, certainly in Europe. That's also, of course, for me, really important. Born and raised European. And I think it's really important to also make sure that we leverage that and show that what we can be proud of. I think the recipe is one side, very key and important thing, also the quality of ingredients. On the other side, the entire factor of brand and the question, what do you actually want to be communicating and what are you all about? And I think a lot of FMCG or CPG overall might not be ready to actually tell a story or what the product is all about. You don't have a story. I mean, I think mine is a little bit out of the ordinary because I was personally affected. But just try to find what your consumer is really looking for, and that is really important. And for me, because longevity is such a word that is, everybody's talking about it, and there are very different interpretations of it. That's why for me it was so important to also make sure that community is such a key pillar for us, because longevity basically means that you have healthy nutrition, movement of body and mind, but also interacting with other people, putting away your phone, and actually talking to someone and learning. And I think we learned that from the blue zones, and that's also something that that's really important for me to have built into Faenix.
Yeah. What do you think will happen with you and in your body when you think about like the first real customer having the drink?
Bliss. I can't wait. I mean, it's very close now. But I can tell you all these milestones from like moving into the right direction with the recipe. But even before that, just small milestones, realizing that I will find the right supplier, finding the right packaging, because there are so many different options and different routes you can take, and there are pros and cons for everyone. But also I think one of the main things was finally having the product in hand, in the packaging, with the label, with the brand on, with the name of the company on there. Yeah. That was incredible. I still have goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah. So from starting with the project and then until having like it in hand, for you, what were like the 3 most difficult moments for you?
We had one other brand claiming that they had been using the name already. So that was certainly a moment where I was just about to order also labels and, ordering other things, of course, with the branded material, which I think is also very specific to CPG. So once you have that logo, that brand on there, it means you've also spent money on it.
Yeah, of course.
That you could have used otherwise. Also legal costs that come with that. That was certainly, let's say, a moment of, learning moment. Another difficult one was, I think it's every week when I might fall back into old habits. I think that's usually a difficult moment because, of course, you feel like you need to be hustling all the time, but then also kind of setting aside time, keeping up my routines, still working out, meeting friends, meditating, keeping my head clear. I think that's a recurring difficult moment.
Have you ever had any self-doubts about the whole project, about going this path and starting like Faenix Elixir?
I see doubt as leaving my comfort zone, which it shows me that I have an insecurity, or I might need better preparations, or sometimes just better trust in myself and my capabilities, that it's just going to work out if I've prepared well and done my research and did everything that I need. But of course, there are moments where I thought, is this really worth it? Is anybody interested? But I have to tell you, that's something that I've really sharpened over the years. And what I really am now proud of is that I feel that my intuition, my gut feeling is much sharper now after starting the company, because you need it. There are so many paths that no one has taken before. So it's a little bit like a magic box, and you don't know what's going to happen with your specific startup. So you really need to tune in and to trust your intuition and your gut feeling about certain decisions, because ultimately, maybe there is no right or wrong. There's just the one that feels better for you. And a lot of things, of course, about the product itself, it could have gone many different ways. And I can still, decide otherwise. But I think trusting yourself is so important.
Would there be trusting yourself, would there be like any other advice you would give to people who might be in the same situation?
Again, it depends really if they have been in the space already or not, especially for food, because there are certain hurdles, of course. Do testing and blind testing as soon as possible. Don't underestimate how much people love to help, especially in the beginning, because they love to be part of something new, and leverage that. And the third one is really invest into the foundations, into the structures, be that the supply chain, be that the legal checks and foundations. That's worth so much down the road. And it will make sure that you can sleep down the road.
In the beginning, you started like your this venture all alone or all by yourself. Did you feel lonely? Would be my question. Also, if so, how did you overcome? How did you deal with that?
For me, starting Faenix Elixir didn't feel lonely per se, even though I'm a solo founder and I still am. I'm proud of that. I think sometimes, of course, questions come up. Don't you need a co-founder? Does it make more sense to have someone else on there? And I deliberately chose that it makes just as much sense to have other people with great skills, experience, and knowledge, and build a team around you. So, of course, they could support and jump in and give their expertise. But I think it's not for everyone. I certainly am someone who doesn't have an issue with spending time on my own, self-starter, or doing things where I'm convinced of that I would like to pursue them. But if you are a solo founder, make sure that you have at least 2 people in your life who are really rooting for you. Ideally, they know something about the thing you're building, but even if not, I have a dear friend who is the biggest fan and is trying to help as much as possible. And sometimes it's just great to have a hype person in your life.
Yeah. Who is the other person?
Shanas.
We are sitting here now, and I do really feel that you are like a confident, composed person. And is there also like a version of you that is dealing with self-doubts about yourself, about this project, about how the future will look like, cash flow things? Which of the 2 versions feels more real?
I think both of them are connected to each other. I am such a believer in there is dark and there is light. I mean, Faenix is basically about that. You just have to reconcile both sides. And of course, there's doubt, but I try to listen in and ask, okay, where is this coming from? What is the actual source? Because very often doubt is just a decoy for something else. And if it's doubt or worry about cash flow, then maybe I haven't thought enough about who might be someone I can reach out to if that need arises. Or should I rethink the cost structure? Am I maybe just not projecting enough, or am I just not trusting enough that there is a market for the product? So I think that is really my way of coping, and also on how to work myself out of these times. And of course, there are dark moments. I mean, for me, it's very often the biggest indicator is my quality of sleep. So if I'm awake at 2 and at 4 a.m. in the morning, I know I need to, give myself more room to breathe. and calm down. And I think everybody anyone struggling with that, I'm sure they have things how they work with that. And
how did you learn to deal with all that kind of inner work? How did you develop that skill?
I think for me, sports and working out certainly has been a big factor. So marathon running certainly has increased my resilience and learning how to deal with painful moments. And for me, working out and especially running is such a lovely metaphor for life. 1 kilometer can be awful and a year in your life can be awful, but it might be followed by the best kilometer or your best year yet.
Yeah.
So just because you're in a downward spiral, it doesn't mean it's going to continue like that. And the other thing that really has helped me so much, also, especially after 2023, was really getting into meditation, breathwork, and kind of creating the ability to hear my own inner thoughts and finding out what a lot of them are actually about.
You mentioned already, like you believe in dark and white. You believe there's always like two sides of something, and Faenix, the motto is like rebuild within. And for me, it doesn't really look like as a typical beverage brand, and nor for me as a typical Austrian brand. So my question would be, how did you develop the vision for it, like the branding? How did you come up with the name? How did that emerge?
It started with the kernel. So really the essence was that. And after deciding that I wanted to create a product out of that, the name and the vision and the concept followed rather quickly, I have to say. And it was for me really like a strike, basically. I know this sounds a little bit, I don't know, woo-woo or whatever. But for me, it was really suddenly very clear. I would love to have this name, and also the symbolism of the logo, for example, that was very clear for me from a very early moment on. And it was non-negotiable, basically. I just knew that I wanted it to be like that, as well with the two circles and kind of showing something that is created by joining two forces and basically creating new life. And rebuild within is for me something where I want to communicate that you have everything inside of yourself. So whatever you're seeking, you have it already. And once you know that, the world will show you how you can find it.
Quite recently, I think you won the Gawandich pitch.
Yeah.
So, well, congratulations to that.
Thank you so
again.
much.
So you were on a stage, like pitching in front of a jury for your startup, for your drink. How did that feel? How was that experience for you? How did you were you nervous, like presenting, pitching? And did you believe in yourself that you're going to win that?
The honest answer, no, I didn't expect to win. I think most importantly because we weren't on the market yet, and I had this. I had this inner belief that you needed to be on a market to actually win. And that's why winning Best Startup in 2026 was such, it was an honest surprise. But it was a lovely confirmation of all the work, the passion, blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into Faenix Elixir. And funnily enough, this time pitching, I was not really nervous. Of course, adrenaline, I try to appreciate that. It gives you an extra boost. But I think my expectations were rather normal or even low. And maybe that was why I could convince even more and did the presentation that basically made us win.
We mentioned already Red Bull and like the beverage market. There's a lot of competitors out there, right? And how do you think that Faenix Elixir will stand out?
The beverage market is one of the few markets still growing, but on the other hand, as you said, it's one of the most competitive ones out there. I'm fully aware of that. I think a lot of people underestimated entering that and creating a drink. But I think what I try to do is really try to find out what people really are still looking for, because I think it shows that the market is still growing and there are still so many new cool products being launched, that there's still curiosity and there's still room for new things. One exit, of course, that I am admiring from afar is Poppy, that was sold to Pepsi. And not only the exit, but just the sheer force and wonderful brand that they've created. It's something entirely different than Faenix. But of course, I love also that it's a female founder brand, and I think that certainly proves that there is still room. I mean, that's an outlier. That's totally sure. But I think you also have to see what people are still wanting and also how lives are evolving. If you would have looked at the beverage market 50 years ago, Coke was already a big player. Yeah. So you could have said, no way that I'm gonna, create something new. But there were other brands that are now making people very happy and enriching their life.
Your launch now is approaching soon, and for now you have launched a wait list so that people can subscribe before the launch will happen. What was your thinking behind that kind of idea?
I noticed that a lot of people wanted to be close to Faenix Elixir, to what I'm doing, to kind of get updates. And that was, for me, a very obvious way to do it, to keep them in the loop. The waitlist is one tool for that. We also have a dedicated community with people in there where I post, maybe more behind the scenes photos and stuff like that, and kind of showing what's happening, because not all of that makes sense to post it on LinkedIn. For me, I use LinkedIn, of course. For me, it's a tool that is super fun to also find, just connect with people that I would have never connected 30 years ago, because you can easily connect with other founders from different geographies. And the waitlist is also a wonderful way to already have them, of course, in your communication and in your CRM, basically setting them up. So operationally, that helped me to already test things that we will need later on. And of course, that also included having, for example, blind tests with the people that are already in the Faenix circle and in the community. And I'm super happy because they're excited.
And as you mentioned, I think it's also a way to validate the product a bit. Were there any other what kind of other ways you performed to validate the idea?
Blind testing, for example, of course, mere market research, knowing what's happening in the market, even though, of course, I have been in that space, and I love products and consumer products. I just love also seeing what others are developing and the innovations happening. So I love a good trade fair, just chatting with others and how they came up with their idea. But for me, really, the community was key. Also, to get that honest feedback, because I always told them I want the honest feedback, also anonymous tests. And so I could really gather information and see what feels right. And that included also comparing different versions of the recipe and then fine-tuning alongside what we should add and what we should change.
We talked a lot about Faenix now, and I wanted to ask you now, what did that teach about yourself?
Oh, so many things. Resilience, trusting myself, also recognizing when I'm going down the wrong road and just I'm kind of stubborn, and then basically realizing when it's time to change something. As I mentioned before, trusting my gut feeling and my intuition. And I think something that is a wonderful learning curve for me was coming from a corporate background. You really need to get innovative on how to create things also with a limited budget, and also without knowing how much something is going to cost. Because in a startup, there are so many things where you cannot really, you have estimates and there are the ways how others have done it. But ultimately, you will never know how much it's going to cost. And there are so many things that you can plan for, and you just need contingencies for that. So really a different kind of budgeting and looking at financing. And certainly giving up a lot of limiting beliefs. I think that's something that I'm so grateful for. Whatever happens with Faenix Elixir, back then I was really hoping for a new job profession where I could learn again. And yeah, mission accomplished. Yeah.
If you started again with Faenix Elixir, would you do something different?
I love that question. I haven't really given that a thought. I guess I don't want to jinx it. Yeah, I would have given myself more grace. So trusting more and giving myself also more grace about some things taking longer than I wanted them to take. Because even for me, I would have expected that it would not take as long, even though it's now 2026. And I think in terms of product development and creating the whole company, I think it's quite a competitive time and duration for that. But yeah, I think that's the main thing.
You mentioned back then you were really like hustling and working a lot. How do you now take care better of yourself also like in the long term?
I think for me, it was really a mindset change. So don't get me wrong, I'm still working a lot. So of course, it's not a 20-hour gig. But I have developed better strategies to notice when I'm overdoing it, when I need a break. And I certainly overstepped those in the past. And for me, also working out and sports has changed. This year I ran my 5th marathon, but it was the first marathon where I said, like, I'm not going to stress about it. I actually ran without a watch, so I wasn't tracking it at all. And I stopped to chat with other people. It was not a PB, but ultimately I enjoyed it more. So I think, I totally understand chasing PBs. But for me, it's creating right now a new quality. It's just a different approach to it. And it's a little bit like looking through a lens from the other side.
Yeah. Imagine, and I don't think this will happen, but Faenix Elixir fails. What would that mean to you? And is there a version of yourself who would be okay with that?
It's not going to fail.
Obviously.
You said a version of myself that
would be okay.
Be okay?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I think you have to be certain about that. And I think once you've created something, it's never going to die. It will turn into something else. So yeah, we'll see down the road. And the question is, because when you said like, if it fails, I was immediately asking myself, what is failure really? Would it be not scaling globally, or is failing that someone challenged me legally and we have to change the name, or would it be a different target group or rebranding? So there are so many things that I think you could consider failure.
On the other hand, for example, is there a definition of success for yourself and also for Faenix Elixir?
For me personally, I have this strong drive to leave a legacy. That's been inherent. So that has really been a driver for me. I was raised in a family of 6 siblings, so I think that's where it's coming from. Also knowing that you need to be self-sufficient, take responsibility, and also how to cooperate with other people and, survive in a big fish tank. And for Faenix, I mean, the launch right now is such a big milestone. So I feel like I really want to make sure that I also celebrate that properly with the community, and also with of course, the first customers that haven't been in the community yet. And then scaling, of course. Just growing and seeing where it goes.
somebody who is now watching and listening and might think of something like you did back then, like thinking for some years about a certain project or something they want to develop and create. And what do you think is the actual thing that most people or many people don't start and don't take the first step?
Very honest answer. I think there are two categories. There are some who stop too soon, even though the idea is great or it just needs refinement. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're inhibiting themselves by not reaching out to someone who might help them or who could just show them a different version. And then there's the other category, and there are certain overlaps, but there is another category of people or founders where there's really there is no need, or they haven't validated the idea properly. It's an idea, but there is no market. And so I think I would really make a differentiation between those two, because some is really external and the other is internal. But that's why I think it's so important to get advisors as soon as possible. Connect on LinkedIn, ask people who are in that space already. Barely anyone says no to a 15-minute chat online, and really make use of that. And I think also something that I would tell myself, enjoy testing your product a little bit more. It all might seem and feel like very disarming to show that I've created something. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect yet, but would you try? I think that's such a wonderful experience, actually. Yeah. How often do you get to tell someone, I created something, do you want to try? Yeah.
I've done an interesting question for you. Do you think it's easier, like, to go all in with your project, or to do it as a side hustle?
I went all in last year in September for a couple of reasons. And the main reason was that I saw that I wanted to, and I could not do it. Okay. Because there was, first of all, of course, my own push that I wanted to create something, and rather quickly, instead of keep on building and then trying to find the perfect product, but never actually reaching it because you're busy doing other things. And I am convinced that you need a certain conviction, maybe passion, others call it addiction, with building the thing in front of you, because otherwise you're never going to reach that point. That being said, I know it's not possible for everyone. I planned for my runway, and I only went all in when I knew that runway would last, and basically also had first validations of the product. Knew what the brand would be like. Also, most of the formulation was already decided on, even though there were lots of pivots after that. But that was for me kind of the certainty that I needed to go all in.
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, or before that, you managed this as a side project?
I didn't mention it for a long time.
Okay.
So that certainly was for me also the as I said, limiting belief. Mm-hmm. I think I couldn't believe that I was actually going down that road, even though I was preparing so much. And it felt more true to myself to give this time and care and see where it takes me, and then deciding for me when it was the right time to talk about it openly.
Where do you want Faenix Elixir to be in 5 years?
In 5 years, I want to make sure that in 5 years, consumers in Europe are happy to have Faenix in their daily routine. Maybe beyond.
Beyond Europe?
For sure.
So now we talked a lot about Faenix Elixir. And since the launch of the website and the web shop is approaching soon, I will encourage you to use my Naked Thoughts code. You can use it in the web shop, and you will get a discount of the product. And the link is below in the description. And I encourage you all to try this great drink out, and
then reach out to me and tell me what you like about it.
Reach out to Veronika and give her as much as feedback as possible. Veronika, thank you so much for the conversation. I have now 5 questions left. These are my final 5 questions.
Ooh.
And first question would be, what is the best advice you've ever been given or received?
Trust yourself.
On the other hand, what is the worst advice you've been followed for too long?
That I followed for too long? I don't regret it, but probably finished a law degree. Maybe I should have, done something differently. It comes in handy now.
I guess it at some point also it helps you and
resilience, stamina.
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start something but feels paralyzed by fear by taking the first step?
Think about your younger self and your older self and try to make both of them proud. And I'm sure they would be super proud if you take that step. And if that doesn't help, think about your grandparents, because they went through a lot of things just to make sure that you can, live on this earth. So make them proud.
What is one thing that you know that you wish you knew before starting?
That it's all going to work out.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, for everything in life. Everything happens at the right time. It all works out, even if you don't know what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. And my last question, if we strip away, your incredible career, Faenix Elixir.
Thank you.
What would still give meaning to your life?
I just spent the weekend with my family. That includes my nieces and nephews, and spending time with them and seeing how they absorb things that I tell them or teach them, including maybe some entrepreneurial lessons. Yeah. That certainly gives meaning to my life. Even if everything is stripped away, I think there will be so many things that you can discover. Yeah. But I think it's very important to keep that in mind, because it can happen anytime. I mean, your job, your health, your friends even. So really try to live every day like it's the first and the last one.
Yeah, we definitely should do that. Veronika, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm really looking forward to try Faenix Elixir, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening. As I said, all the links are below. Try out Faenix Elixir. You won't regret it.